Welcome to Algebra 1 and the new school year. It's going to be a good one. Let's get started. Make sure that whenever you take notes, you're writing down the things that are on here. If you're printing off the notes, you already have them. Make sure you're writing down anything that I scribble down in my awful handwriting on the screen. Okay, but if you're taking notes on your own paper, make sure you get the lesson title and the objectives. Okay, so lesson title, this is our first unit, lesson 1, called Variables in Algebra. You have two objectives. The first one is to evaluate a variable expression, and the second one is to use the interest and distance formulas to solve real-world application problems. Okay, and objectives again just mean that's what I want you to know at the end of the lesson. Alright, so let's go ahead and dive right into it. Let's get started. Couple things you need to know before we can start doing examples in this lesson. A couple terms. Okay, the first one is a variable expression. A variable expression is just something that contains numbers, letters, and operations. Okay, it contains a combination of those things. Okay, the most important ones are letters. Okay, it cannot be a variable expression if it does not contain letters. All right, that is impossible. So examples of variable expression would be like 2x, okay, 2 times x, 5x plus 7, x divided by 3. Okay, those are all variable expressions because they have letters and operations and numbers. Another thing you need to know that you probably know already is power. Okay, a power, you're going to have to know how to evaluate that, and we'll talk about what that means. But you have to know power has two parts. Okay, the first of which is called the base. You know the base is the big part. Okay, it's the big number. Okay, and the second part of a power is this little guy up here, and you know him or her as the exponent. Okay, so we got a base and an exponent. Now you're going to have to know what the power actually means. Okay, the power tells you what you're multiplying together and how many times you're multiplying together. Okay, the base is the actual number you're multiplying times itself. Okay, so I'm going to multiply 4 together some number of times. And I know how many times because the exponent tells me that. So 4 to the third power means 4 times 4 times 4. Whoops, not times 3. Times 4. So I'm taking 4 times itself 3 times. Okay, that's what the power actually means. Now to evaluate that, all you're doing is solving for it. You should tell me what is 4 times 4 times 4, because the word evaluate means to solve. Okay, well 4 times 4 is 16. 16 times 4 is 64. So if I asked you to evaluate this power right here, here's your answer. Okay, when you write your answers, I always want you to put them either in a circle or in a box. Okay, something that makes it stand out lets me know where your answer is. Okay, so again, variable expressions and powers. Gotta know what that means when we talk about a power. Know that the base is the number that's being multiplied together, and the exponent tells you how many times. Alright, let's go on to some examples now. Correction, before we can do any examples, I want you to go ahead and we're going to have to write down the steps, okay, that I want you to use. So steps to evaluating a variable expression. Okay, so that's what we're talking about. Step 1 is you're going to plug in the given number for the variable. So they're going to tell you like x equals 5. Okay, the first step is to plug that number in instead of x. Then step 2 is to use PEMDAS, the order of operations. Please excuse my dear Aunt Sally, to solve that. Okay, you should remember that. We're going to have a lesson in a little bit that we go over that a little more, but that should be a review for you guys. Okay, so 2 steps there. Make sure you get those written down. Now, for real, let's go on to some examples. Okay, I got 2 examples here. First example says to evaluate 2y minus 3 when y equals 2. So evaluate means to solve, and we're telling you that y has to equal 2. So again, the first step is to plug in this number 2 whenever I see a y. Okay, well 2y means 2 times y, so we're going to take 2 times our new y value that they gave us, which is 2, minus 3. So 2 times y minus 3 now means 2 times 2 minus 3. Then we have to use the order of operations to solve. Well, in PEMDAS, please excuse my dear Aunt Sally, multiplication has to come before subtraction. Okay, so we do the multiplication first. 2 times 2 is 4. Then we're going to take 4 minus 3, and that equals 1. Again, circled or boxed. Okay? Now let's do example 2. Same thing here. It says to evaluate this expression 2x squared minus 2x squared when x equals 2. Okay, now notice my 2x squareds are different. One has parentheses around it. That's going to change how we solve each one of those. Okay, so we got to make sure that we keep everything in here the same except for my x. So I'm going to keep my parentheses. I'm going to have 2 times my x, which is 2, because 2x means 2 times x, and we're going to square that. Then we're going to have minus 2 times my x again, squared with no parentheses this time. Alright, well, PEMDAS, order of operations, says we do parentheses first. We're going to take care of these right here. 2 times 2 is 4. Now I've got 4 squared minus 2 times 2 squared. Next comes the e, that stands for exponents. So we'll go ahead and take care of both of these exponents in one shot. 4 squared is 16, because that means 4 times 4. Minus, we keep the 2. There's no exponent with it. Times 2 squared is 4. So I got 16 minus 2 times 4. Well, next, before subtraction, we have to do the multiplication. Okay, so we're going to take care of this one. So we're going to have 16 minus 2 times 4 is 8. And we're going to finish this. 16 minus 8 is 8. Answer in a box or in a circle. Okay, so again, evaluate means we're going to plug in the number and we're going to solve the expression on down. Okay, let's go on to the next objective. Okay, our next objective, objective 2, was to use the interest and distance formulas to solve real-world application problems. Okay, and again, we're going to have some steps to solve these. These are going to go for all of your real-world application problems. Step 1 is to pick the correct formula. Okay, there are 2 of them. There's an interest formula and a distance formula. Okay, I'm going to start with the distance formula because it's easier to explain, but we'll give them both to you at the same time here. Okay, so pick the correct formula. There's 2 formulas. First one is d equals r times t. What that means is, this is the distance formula. D stands for distance. That r stands for rate. The rate is going to be something like miles per hour or meters per second, or something that tells you how fast you're going. Okay, something like that. And then that t stands for, I'm sure you could guess it, it's time. Okay, so we're going to give you some amount of time. This other formula over here, this is the interest formula. Okay, the I stands for interest. The P stands for principal. Not like Mr. Hart, okay, different kind of principal. And then the R stands for rate again. And then the T stands for time. Okay, I'm going to give you a couple specific things. Let me start by explaining to you. Interest. Okay, what interest is in a lot of the situations you'll be given, it's either going to be extra money that you have to pay or extra money that you gain over time. So like say you took out a loan to buy a car. Okay, you have to pay interest on it, meaning you pay however much your car is, plus you have to pay extra money for them letting you borrow their money. Okay, or let's go reverse. Let's say you open a savings account. Okay, for keeping that money in the bank and not using it, the bank will give you interest. They'll pay you interest. Okay, for just storing that money. So that's what interest is. It's kind of extra money that occurs over time. Okay, principal is the amount of money you started with. Okay, now a couple important things about the rate. The rate is going to be written as a decimal. Okay, that's important. You'll see why on the next slide. And also important, the time is always in years. Okay, time has to be in years. Those things are both very important. Okay, so step 1, pick the correct formula. Step 2, plug in your given information to the formula. So if you know the distance, plug it in. If you know the rate, plug it in, and then solve for the time or whatever it is. Okay, so plug in the stuff you know. And step 3 is to go ahead and solve for whatever variable you're trying to solve for. Okay, most of these you'll be solving for either the distance or the interest. Alright, now let's go, got 2 examples for you. Okay, so here's our examples here. Example number 3 says Mr. Ayers is driving to Las Vegas at an average speed of 65 miles per hour. Okay, I have a grandma and grandpa who live in Las Vegas, so I'm going to visit them. I'm driving 65 miles an hour on average. It says to find the distance traveled in 4 hours. Okay, now when we do word problems, something I always want you to do is to circle the information that you are given. That's important. Okay, so what's important in this problem? We know that I am traveling at an average speed of 65 miles per hour, so I circle that. Okay, I also know that I traveled 4 hours. Okay, and that or at that speed. And then I want you to underline what you don't know, what you're trying to find out. I'm trying to find the distance. Okay? Now, step one, after doing that, so we have to pick the correct formula. Well, it's asking for the distance, so obviously that's going to be our distance equals rate times time. Okay? Well, it says find the distance, so we don't know the distance. We don't know d, so we're going to leave it alone. We're going to leave it as a variable because we don't know it. Okay? Now remember what I said on the last slide about the rate. It said that the rate has to be written as a decimal. Sorry, that's for the interest problem, not for distance problem. So rate is usually going to be some sort of speed. Okay? In this case, we've got 65 miles per hour. Times our time, and our time is 4 hours. Okay? Now we're just going to take those things and multiply them together to find our distance. Distance is 65 times 4. Well, 65 times 4, that is 260. Okay, and since we're finding distance, we know it's going to be 260. We got to have a label, miles. In a box or a circle, something to let me know where your answer is. Okay, so there it is, plugging into the formula, solving for D. Alright, now let's look at example 4 here. You deposit $650 into account at a rate of 8% per year. How much simple interest will you earn after? And I want you to find it for half a year and for 3 years. Okay? I'm actually going to do those backwards. I'm going to do part B first, okay, because it's a little easier to deal with. So again, circle what you know. You deposit $650 into account. Okay? The account has a rate of 8% per year. Okay, that's your interest. Sorry, that's not an underline. We'll erase that. Okay, 8% per year. And underline what you don't know, what you're trying to find out. We want to know how much simple interest will you earn. Okay, now things we also know are what they give us in A and what they give us in B, but we don't need to circle those because they are telling us those in a different way. Alright, so it says how much simple interest, so we know we're going to use our interest equals principal times rate times time. Now, it's asking us how much simple interest will we earn. Okay, so I'm going to do B over here first. We'll leave a little room for A right here. Okay, so B, I want to know how much simple interest. So I'm going to leave my I. Principal, again, that's the amount you start with. Okay, well, I'm starting with $650. You know what, I'm going to erase this really quick so I have a little more room because I'm going to run out. I got a feeling. Okay, so we're going to do this right here. B. So we got interest equals my principal, $650, that's what I put in, times my rate. Now this is where I said the rate has to be written as a decimal. So look at the rate. They're always going to give you a percentage. Okay, 8%. We got to think about how we write 8% as a decimal. Well, that's 8% means out of 100, so that means 8 hundredths. Okay, times our time, and our time has to be in years. Well, for part B, they're telling us it's 3 years. Okay, so I've got my interest equals my principal times my rate times my time. So I'm just going to be taking 650 times 0.08 times 3. Okay, so 650 times 0.08. Now you would be solving this on your paper. For sake of time, I'm not going to. It's 52. And then 52 times 3 should give me, oh, I don't know, I think about 156. Okay, now this is asking how much simple interest. It's money, earning $156 after 3 years. So I've got the savings account that's giving me $156 of money in there. Okay, now A. Okay, let's go back to A right here for half a year. Same numbers. We got interest equals my principal is still $650 times my rate times my time. Now my time is half a year. Okay, so we either need to put that in as 1/2 or 0.5. Okay, either way. Well, I already did 650 times 0.081, so that was 52. Okay, times 0.5. 52 times 1/2, or half of 52, that's 26. So over half a year, I would get $26. Okay, so there's your examples. If you got any questions, make sure you ask me, and good luck on your homework. It should be pretty easy today.